Well, thank you everybody for having me. I do have a California Bonsai studio and hope you can make it up there sometime. I'm going to be working on the oak tree that I brought today. It's not one that I actually know much of the history on. A customer brought it by the other day, and I thought it'd be a good one to work on because you see something like this pretty commonly that's just been chopped back but doesn't really have a whole lot of development to it yet. So what I'd like to do is start to take the wood down and create something more interesting and get it started. I'm sure you'll be able to hear the grinders fine. So, I didn't bring too many hand carving tools today. This tree mostly calls for power tools. What I did bring is my Makita grinder, and it has this flex shaft extension on it. I really love the extension because instead of having to wield this large tool, you get to use it more like a pen. I use that for taking away the majority of the wood. I also brought a Dremel tool with the same type of extension. You probably see these a lot more often. They're great for doing the more detailed work. And I brought my drill. So what I have in mind for this tree is something kind of like a tree that I saw when I was growing up, which it basically started to rot out from the inside. And some of the roots died off, and so the tree ended up being hollow on the inside. It was almost like a little doorway created to it. And from there, over the years, I watched it for about 30 years, the tree started to rot away from the inside out. So that's what I'm going to try and recreate here. My turn up on.
Okay, this is working.
How's that? Can everybody hear me okay?
I think anywhere up in that area will work pretty well. Pull your chin.
How's that working? Yeah. All right. So, like I said, I've got the Makita grinder with the flex shaft on it, and not associated with them, but Kaizen Bonsai is who sells this bit that I'm using. At the moment, I forget the name. I think it's the Terrier, something like that. They have a few different bits, and I've got a couple of them. They work really well. I also like to use these burrs, kind of like this, of all different sizes. These take off the wood nice and smoothly, where this can kind of take off bigger chunks. The nice thing about this one being as small as it is you can get into tighter spaces, which is what I'm going to be trying to do with this tree. So I sat down the other day and started looking at this tree to figure out what I was going to do with it. And you can kind of see that we have a lot of the branches off to one side here. And so leaves a few different options, but what I thought is, since we're focusing on carving today, we'd go ahead and make the carving the front of it. From there, I'll probably probably take some of these branches out and try and fill in a little bit so we have more of a full canopy. But that's the kind of thing that can be done over time pretty easily. So, with that, I want to start to try and whittle away some of this wood from the top. I don't know if I'm going to be able to do it with these, but give it a try. Basically, we've got a large cut here. Doesn't look too natural. So we want to try and whittle that away a little bit. I think it's a little too hard for these cutters. We want to get away from that flat cut and start to create something with taper. One other thing to mention is when this tree was cut back, you can see that it died back quite a bit. We've still got a little bit of life over here because I can see the buds, even though there's not much in the way of leaves. But you can see right here, there's a mark of where the tree is alive on this side and the tree is dead on this side. It's becoming more pronounced as the tree grows. You can see it on this side as well. So I'm going to try and stick mostly to that area where the tree is already dead.
When you're looking at the bark from out here, the bark looks about the same color on the dead side as it does on the live side. Can you describe how you can tell it's dead even though it's dead?
Yeah, a lot, it starts to change a little bit of color, not much. You can see the cracks starting to happen. But the thing that I always look for first is the swelling of the live parts. So you'll see here where it looks nice and plump on this side. And this side is kind of, hasn't grown out. It's as if it's kind of dried out and sucked in a little bit. And that's the best indicator of where the live line is. Another great way to do it, if you're unsure of it, for instance, it's real obvious that it's dead here. So start here and start working your way down. And when you see green, you know you have the live part. So safety is always important. I like to take these rags and just kind of cover over the soil so that we don't end up filling it up with sawdust. Nice sanitized tools. And so, safety glasses are always important. I remember my welding shop teaching me that you can use a magnet to pull metal out of your eye, but it doesn't work for wood. So, very important to have these. And also very important, you don't notice it on the day that you're doing the carving, but the next day you definitely do. You end up with this really fine sawdust in your lungs that'll keep you coughing the rest of the day. So to try and avoid that, I brought a couple of masks from Home Depot, but I kind of prefer the bandana just for looks. See if I can get it tied on.
Is that an OSHA-approved bandana?
I usually wear cowboy boots when I'm working too, so it goes along with the outfit. Make sure that your grinder is off before you plug it in. I also like to, when I'm at home, I have a hanger for this thing, so it just kind of floats freely. I'll keep it on my lap for now, but that gets interesting sometimes. Oh, another nice thing about this grinder is the variable speed. So you'll find a bit like this can kick back sometimes. Because of these large teeth, it'll catch the wood, and it'll kick back or it'll grab, and then you've destroyed your lifeline. So keeping it at the right speed is important. If it goes too slow, it's more likely to kick back. So I try to keep it at a higher speed. And it also depends on the bit that I'm using. It's something like a wire wheel, you put it on too high of a speed, you're going to get all the prongs flying out of there. So you got to keep it at a lower speed. We've got a nice slow speed there.
Good idea. Yeah. And maybe even on that side with the light.
Yeah, that's what that's what yeah.
Perfect.
That's awesome.
So what I'm really doing at this point is trying to get rid of the dead bark and uncover the areas up to where it's alive. So you can see here we're starting to find some of the live vein on there. So basically here I've gotten to where you can start to see some of the live portions of the tree. I've gotten up to the border on this side, gotten to the border on this side. I'll probably go a little bit further here. Doing my best not to kill off this branch though. So now you see we have some natural characteristics of the tree. I've heard of a lot of teachers basically saying, well, you just got to do what the tree tells you to. And I'm going to try and explain what that means. It's really hard to put this stuff into words, but we can look at what the tree's given us naturally here. We have a little branch here, a little branch here. We have what used to be a branch here. Same thing up here. This is a good example of it because we've got a branch that's been basically rotted back. So you've got the tree around it that continued to grow. And this is the situation where you would see something that's kind of going into the trunk. They call it a euro, or it's a little different than a gin or a shari. It's where it actually goes in. Makes a nice little hole for an owl to live in or something like that. So with this, we have so much this naturally developed characteristic of the tree that I'd try and use that. Instead of saying, oh, I want the hole down here, which I could do, but it would take a lot more work to make it look natural. Whereas here, I can just kind of hollow that out, and it's going to look nice and natural. Not saying that that's actually what I'm going to do with this tree, because of the fact that we've got this up here, I want to bring this down and create some taper. So this hole very well might disappear.
Travis, how close did you get to that branch you said you're trying to avoid?
Well, at the moment, it looks like I've got about 3/4 of an inch. And I can actually see a little crack there, which tells me that there's at least 1/4 of an inch more that I can go before I start to hit live stuff. With what I was doing, I was going very quickly and roughly, just trying to get rid of the bark. So it'll be once I'm doing more of the detail work that I'll go in and get a little bit closer.
So where the branch came out, the collar around the branch on the trunk itself, and you see how it kind of sits out like a, kind of pokes out a little bit. So,
I'm sorry?
Right here, it looks like the collar of the branch.
Yeah.
And so you're staying outside the collar. And the
Yeah.
collar is kind of a raised portion where the branch comes out.
Yeah, definitely. And, you know, different trees are going to require a different amount of space there. You know, different trees grow horizontally at different rates. So you always have the life moving upward and downward through the tree, but then you also have the life going sideways as well. Some trees it does that better than others. With this tree in particular, it's, you know, you want to be a little bit more careful than, say, a juniper or something like that. Which is evident from the way that we cut it back here and decided half of the tree should die off. So now I'm looking for a place that I can go in. As I was saying, I want to try and hollow the tree out. I don't see a good opportunity for that at the moment, so I'm going to go ahead and do the next step, which is to try and create some taper. You know, we have the tree looking as if it's supposed to be quite a bit taller than this. By creating some taper, we're going to try and make it look like this is the actual top of the tree. So what I'm doing here is still trying to just create the rough outline of what I want the deadwood to look like. So I've taken away a lot of that flat cut and gotten more taper to it. And the turntable is really important in this situation, because you can go ahead and do that and say, oh, I've got nice taper here. Then you turn the tree and you find out that you have no taper from this angle. So it's important to keep turning it around and taking a look and making sure that you've got good three-dimensional results here. So my initial idea with this tree was to go through and kind of hollow it out. I had an idea from a tree that I grew up looking at. I don't see that idea working out for this particular tree. So, that's part of what goes in line with doing what the tree tells you. You can have an idea that you want to try and enact, but it doesn't necessarily always work if the tree doesn't want you to.
Why do you say that? Why isn't it?
Well, because the tree that there's a tree in my parents' backyard when I was growing up. And the tree had rotted out from the inside out. And so there was almost this doorway, but it hadn't completely rotted, so there was actual wood across the doorway. And you could tell it was hollowed behind it. It was the coolest thing. As a little kid, I thought little fairies lived in there. And so I thought that'd be a great one to recreate here. But we don't have a situation like that on this tree that really works all that well. I'm still going to be trying to do something like that. I'm going to go ahead and hollow the tree out a bit, because there is so much deadwood to it here. And we've got, obvious section of the roots that aren't functioning anymore. So it's natural to see it rotted away, but just not in quite the same way. Basically there's no good spot for the doorway on this tree. What we do have is what used to be a branch here. This would be a good spot to go in at. But yeah, so this tree will be unique. But again, all I'm trying to do right now is kind of create a good taper to it, get it to look more natural for what size the tree is. And then once I've got that established, that's when you go in and do a little bit more of the fine work. So for now, I've got a bit of the outline made here. I'm going to go and start to try and carve into the inside somehow. You guys don't mind if I sit here and look at the tree for a while? Oh, along with that story, the story is the important part there. It doesn't work out for this tree, but you kind of got to create a story for this tree. I find that that's a great way of making sure that you follow the most important rule, which is that the tree looks natural. We've got all these different rules to try and help us learn how to do bonsai. And basically, most of them are made to be broken. If we all followed the rules too specifically, then we'd all end up with the trees that looked exactly the same. So it's when you can learn how to follow the rules and learn the instances where they can be broken that things can get more interesting. But for the most part, we want to create something that makes sense in nature. That this tree either, the top got damaged by, the most common story is lightning, but there's all different things that could happen. A branch could rot away, roots could be affected by soil moving, all different things. So roots die off on one side, roots die off on the inside, too many insects decide they want to make it their home, all different things. So still working out what this tree's story is.
What specifically are you looking at in the tree to determine the story?
Well, how it's grown. One of the things is where the branches are at, where they've died off. For instance, this right here. So that's part of the tree's story right there. Where it's grown. For instance, I was mentioning that you can see the lifelines because part is more plump and out and part is more sunken in. So if that happens over a longer period of time, then you're going to have the tree growing over the dead wood or growing around it and growing in new directions. And so that's part of the story. The tree died off in a section, but then it regrew. And that's what makes it more interesting, you know, the hardship. We all love hardship. Still care.
So eventually, you'll take off those dead branches?
The ones at the bottom?
That one that you're touching right there, and then the one, yeah.
Well, yeah, that's a good question. This branch that I'm touching here, I don't have it there for aesthetic purposes. It's not meant to be part of the tree, but, and I've even damaged it a bit, but the good thing about it is because we've got all of this that's dead down here, this is trying to help keep more of a portion of it alive. So I want the tree to establish with this there, and once it's healthier, and it's one downside of the tree wasn't all that healthy when I got it. It's definitely coming back. I've got it into new soil and it's getting healthier. And so once it is strong and vigorous, that'll be time to cut this branch off. But until then, I want to keep it there to draw up the sap, keep the lifeline alive.
And the one below it, the little
Same thing.
thing.
Yeah. This one over here, just haven't cut it off yet. All right, we've got our story now. So here's the story. This was a low branch, a large branch on the tree, but it had grown quickly. And eventually it broke away from being too heavy for its own weight. And so there was a little hole and some water started to get in there. And over time, that hole started to rot away. And a couple of animals decided to make it their home, along with a bunch of insects. And the tree started to rot away from the inside out. And so that rot went downward and it also went upward. And so it started to rot the tree out from the inside and killed off this entire side of the tree. That's the way I see it. So from there, what I'm going to be doing is trying to hollow this out. I've made this groove here, and that's going to be the part that you can't see through, and it's also going to be my access to the inside of the tree to try and get it hollowed out.
What about the fairies?
Well, I'm going to have to make a few pockets. I think they're living somewhere under this branch here.
How do you know you're not hitting the live tree yet?
I don't see any green. I think I might have got a little bit of live tree there, but. So I'm going to swap bits out now to this other bit, which, because of its size, is going to make it so I can actually get in there a little bit better.
What do you do with the drill?
The drill, I just drill the hole straight down to kind of help me get through it. The drill is able to go through a lot quicker than this thing here. So it's just giving me access to that inside. The biggest challenge here is the lack of time. If I was doing a tree like this at home, I'd probably spend more like 8 hours on it than 1.5. But do what we can. So you see why I usually prefer to just talk at the end, because then you don't know that I changed my mind. You know, the branch that we talked about wasn't in the right place. So I started looking at it, and it was forcing me to go a direction, to stay clear of that area, and I just didn't want to anymore. That's kind of part of how they say the tree speaks to you. You got to stay really open-minded when you're working with it. Basically trying to get these two holes to join up so that our story makes sense.
Do you have to worry about real water damage to the tree now after this?
You do,
Yeah.
actually, which, considered a continually developing tree.
Travis, are you gonna put the wood preservative on there of any kind?
Well, yeah, I've actually got a whole story for that too. With the, you've seen all different types of ways that people will try and work with the bark, adding color to it and the preservative. So if you use lime sulfur, you're going to end up with a much whiter wood. If you're using, some people use ink of India ink. Not sure which order it goes in, but they use ink to try and create darker spots on the tree, sometimes mixing it with the lime sulfur. Other people have suggested burning the tree, using a torch to burn parts of it. The main problem with that is when you have a tree that's rotting away, it's going to be those parts that are furthest from the sun, the little crevices. That's where you're going to get the black stuff. But when you're burning it, you end up with the black stuff on the outside, on the thinnest parts of the tree. And so it's kind of counter to what it should be if you're trying to suggest that the tree's been rotted away. you want to suggest it was in a forest fire, then it's perfect. But so what I like to do is actually let the tree rot a little bit. After I do a carving like this, especially something with all these crevices and holes in it, I'll actually put the tree in a place with relatively low light. You know, it doesn't get too much sun during the day. I'll keep it a little bit overwatered, keep it a little too wet, and let it start to rot a little bit. And then I'll go through and use the lime sulfur and also a little bit of a wire wheel or a wire brush. And what that does is on the most exposed areas that are going to be exposed to wind and sun, those turn white. And the rest of the stuff back behind it stays a darker color. And then with the lime sulfur over the top, you've managed to preserve it. You have to keep putting the lime sulfur on over the years, and especially if something's this deep, then you really do have to take care of it. If you take good care of it, it'll last a long time, especially a nice hard oak wood. If you don't, then maybe you just let the whole thing rot out from the inside until it rots through to the bottom. There's enough left on this tree that it'll live on. It would take a lot of years of rotting before this tree really had a problem health-wise. You know, when I talk to people about, there's always been a debate on whether to do gin on a pine tree. And from an old Japanese master, I heard, well, no, you can't do gin on a pine tree because it'll rot away. But we're pretty young over here. And so for us, if it's going to last 100 years, then that's good. You know, I think they're looking at hundreds of years, which that's how long it would take for a lot of the wood to rot away. So this might not be a tree that you can pass on to your great-great-great-grandchildren, but it'll last quite a while. All depends on what you're looking for out of the tree, I guess. Let's see if we can hollow it out.
Travis?
Yeah.
If the tree were completely healthy and you wanted to do what you're doing, would you do anything differently?
Well, it depends again. How long do I want it to last? If I'm not asking that question, then no. But if for instance, there's a lot of pomegranates I have that I would love to carve. But if you open those up to too much deadwood, they're going to rot away too quickly. And so it's not worth doing. If I'm looking for a tree that I want to make it look nice and I'm not as worried about hundreds of years down the road, then I wouldn't worry about it. But for the most part, if I have a tree that's completely healthy, I'm going to consider that, and in a lot of cases, keep it that way, you know, or at least have the dead wood in a way that it's not going to rot away. So speaking of the tree rotting away, one thing, because you're going to have a pool of water down in here, so one nice thing to do is actually take a drill and drill a hole that does go down through the center all the way out so that the water can drain. I want to be careful where you're doing that at, but it should work with this tree. So another big part of carving, especially when using power tools, is you want to, again, try and keep things looking natural. When you're using one bit, especially a large bit, you're going to end up with a lot of obvious tool marks because of their uniformity. So one way I do it is to switch to a lot of different bits. And another way is just trying to start off with the large bit and work my way down to the smaller ones and just put in more detail.
Do you try to get the surface smooth, or do you like ridges? Or?
Well, you know, a lot of the time I prefer to use the natural texture of the tree. If it's going to be an area that I don't have to take away wood, then I want to leave it as natural as possible. Apart from that, then what I'm trying to do is create something that looks like old aged wood. You know, so that means that the lifelines are there, the cracks are there, you know, the undulations of where it's grown and where it hasn't grown.
Travis, after you do a lot of writing like that, should you, aside from the fact that wait to age the wood, before you complete the job, is it a good idea to let the tree dry up a little bit and see where the natural cracks are going to be?
Yeah, well, you know, there's a lot to that. That's one reason that you want to be careful on the direction that you're going. This tree is a little easier because it's just nice, simple up and down. When you're working with junipers, you have there's a lot more character to them, and so it's tempting to take a big straight branch and then make it seem as if it's going in a different direction. Time is not your friend there, because then as the marks of the wood show up, it's going to be very obvious that, okay, the branch is going this way, but the grain of the wood is going this way, so it just doesn't make sense. So it's something that you want to pay attention to as you're carving the tree. You know, with experience, it'll kind of tell you where those lines are going to show up. But then at the same time, you know, it's not always done in one sitting. But, you know, it is a good idea to kind of see what happens and go through and be able to adjust for it. So again, because I'm using the wire wheel, I'm going to turn the speed down on this. So I'm doing two things with this wire wheel. One, I'm getting rid of the little burrs. The other is to try and get rid of the tool marks.
Give you a nickname now. Why you kidding? Get the bonsai bandito. The bandito with bonsai.
That's how he makes his bank deposit.
Do you happen to have that torch?
Yeah.
So I like these little burrs for the Dremel tool. Forget the exact name of them, but they have just a bunch of tiny little teeth on them. So they take away the wood nice and smoothly, but the problem with them is that you'll end up with a really smooth bit after all the wood's gotten stuck in there. And so that can be quite an issue. Found one way is to take a wire wheel and grind it off, but that's not always all that easy. Another way that works a little bit better is to take a pair of pliers. Do not hold this while you're heating it, but you want to heat up, is that a safety?
Oh, yeah, it's so only a 3-year-old can operate it. And then slide that over, it'll stay on, and then push that back and you're done.
Thank you. So we want to heat this up. Burn all that wood around it so it's gotten nice and crispy. And then you can either take the wire brush and it comes off nice and easy, or you can just use it. It usually falls right off. So that should do the trick there pretty much. Then you do not grab it. Other pair of pliers. That should just melt right through there. Yeah, you can see there's still a little bit on there, but it's already opened itself up pretty well.
Do you have a brush?
Uh,
I've got a brush for you.
I think we're pretty good here.
We cleaned the wheel yesterday with a brush on it.
Yeah. So you can see we're nice and clean. First time that's happened. Apparently these break after a while. Looks like the shaft broke here.
Travis, do you need a different bed? I got some stuff here.
Well, it's actually just the part that holds the piece in.
Oh, do you need a Colette? I also have a little drum. Do you need another Colette?
Yeah, you have one?
You just take it off of mine, or just use mine.
Oh, you know. I think I've got it here.
Yeah.
There we go. So apparently these have about an 8-year lifespan. Back in business.
Which one though?
Doing on time.
All right, we're looking good. 20 minutes. I always feel like I'm on a cooking show when I'm telling you that. 20 minutes left, and then tools down.
Yeah, so what I've started to do here is try and put in, very crudely, started to put in some lines to try and mimic the grain of the wood. A lot of what that does is get rid of the big tool marks. As long as you do it along the same grain as the wood, it comes out looking pretty natural, especially over time. You can kind of see on the inside here, though, we still have a lot of tool marks. I wasn't able to get to the inside with the bit that I was using, so I'm going to switch to something else that's a little bit smaller.
I've got a small bird head.
I think I got it. There it is.
Is that the little, that's a tiny one.
Yeah, this one has actual kind of teeth to it, but as long as they don't get clogged up, it works well.
Is that a double cut or a single cut? A single cut, okay. A double cut looks more like a file.
Sorry.
Yeah, I got my hair compressor.
Ready to go. Press. You got a piece of tubing. You want to
Yeah.
yeah,
Fiber.
Take it out on that.
Good for you. Fiber.
like that natural mint flavor. Oh, sure.
Try it out.
Before he turns that back on, just a quick answer to a couple of questions I've had regarding May 15th. If you are needing special conveyance assistance to get from the main parking lot up, would you make sure you make a note of that on your sign-up list? And I will arrange with the park to have the shuttle service from the front gate entrance where you come in up to the pavilion. So if you need that kind of assistance, or if somebody needs that assistance, please note it on the sign-up list, and I will try and arrange it. Or I will arrange it. Thank you.
So like I was saying before, I would probably spend a good 6 or 8 hours on a tree like this. So there's a lot of shortcuts that I have to take care and things that are going to be a little bit left undone. A lot of that is just going through on the inside and getting rid of the tool marks. Adding in little details, things like that. Have to remember we're doing this for the fun of it, so it's nice to take your time when you can. I was talking earlier about how that bit tends to kick back sometimes, especially if you're not holding it the right way. There's an example. So one option here is to go ahead and just carve the rest of this away and try and make it look like I did it on purpose. Another option is to just see if it'll grow back, because we haven't really cut all the way through, so there's a good chance that that'll grow back and heal over. I think we'll go ahead and so the idea that I had for this tree was that the front was going to be somewhere in this vicinity. And then I was going to go ahead and pull the top back up over. So that's one of the rules that has to be broken sometimes. Usually with a tree, you want the lifeline, the live part of the tree, to be up at the front. You want to be able to see the lifeline of the tree, see at least part of it that's alive. With this tree, because so much of it is carved, I was going to go ahead and break that rule, and we'd only be able to see a little bit of the lifeline off to the side here, off to one side or the other. So really, it's going to be a matter of wiring the branches a little bit to bring them around to the right spots, but then really just letting the tree grow in. And, you know, over the years, I've found myself doing a lot more clip and grow and a lot less wiring. You know, there's times when, of course, you have to wire, but I find that, especially having a lot of trees to take care of, the clip and grow method works out pretty well. And you can end up with some real nice, natural-looking branches.
Would you want it to grow much taller?
Not really. What I see happening is we try and get more growth out of this, more growth out of this here. Try and really get it to fill in these areas here. I think there's a little bit that I do want to cut away. For instance, we've got this that's coming right from the base of the branch where it meets the trunk. And so typically that's not something you want to let happen, so we're going to go ahead and get rid of that. There's half of the foliage. Because this is the stronger branch, I'm going to go ahead and bring this down a bit. Leave 2 leaves on there, but doing this, and hopefully that'll encourage more of the growth to come out in this direction. So I'm going to go ahead and put just a couple of wires on to get it headed in the right
The
direction.
one on the bottom here,
Yeah?
would you want that to go for, or is that the same, you're gonna let it stay there for life,
This one here?
full life?
You know, I still don't know. As I look at the tree, I can see reasons to get rid of it, and I can also see reasons to keep it. So because it's a lot easier to cut it off than to glue it on, I'm going to leave it for now. But this is a branch that I could very likely see coming off in the future.
So where's your front and where's your apex?
Well, not in the right place. Got the camera, so
Yeah, you're good.
So this is what I'm thinking of as the front, which that means that the apex is in the back. And so that's why we're going to try and grow from either down here or up here and get it to start to come up over the front again. So we don't have the textbook rule of the lifeline being in the front, but over time, hopefully we'll get enough foliage that it fills it in. And, you know, I think this is the more interesting part of the tree. If we were to make this the front, then I just wasted an hour and a half of your time.
But you don't want to see the hole of the, you don't want the hole in the front?
You mean making this the front?
Yeah.
Well, you know, my thinking behind that is that I want to, you know, this is a 3D object. So I want to try and make it so that the viewer wants to look around, wants to search into the tree. So we're kind of leaving, you know, I think there's a rule about this one for females and how they dress, but you know, you got to leave something to the imagination. So that's my thinking on that. It's not to say that this wouldn't be a good front, but you've got to make a decision somewhere. And so there's things like this that I did to try and, instead of having a flat line here, I tried to make these little peaks to basically just break things up. You know, straight lines, straight marks, they just don't look natural. So that's a lot of what I've been trying to do here is to break all of that up, get away from having any of that. I started working on it up here at the top, looking at it, it could use a little bit more.
Is that why you kept those other branches still?
These here?
Yeah, those, the little nuts on the.
Oh,
Yeah.
these. Well, yeah, it's natural character of the tree. And so, again, it can always be cut off. but I found them to be more interesting and you know, gives a little bit more character. You know, it's pretty hard to recreate those. If you have a thick piece of wood, you can make branches that look like that, but if you've got a natural one, why not take advantage of it? So basically, here's our culprit. Started all the rotting. The tree has died away from there, but it's strong and it's going to continue growing. Hopefully. There's the real reason I left that on. So I'm only going to be doing a minimal amount of wiring. I don't think that I've really stressed this tree out too much, but just to be on the safe side, I want to let it recuperate and start to grow before we put any too much additional stress on it. So regardless of whether this is the front or this is the front, either way we kind of want to bring this branch around a little bit.
Now, before you do anything else to this tree, how long will you let it just grow again?
Well, if we were at my nursery, the answer would be the next time I got around to it.
But I'm like, a year, 2 years?
Yeah, well, not quite that long. Really, the course that I would probably take with this tree, if I had time, would be to let it grow out for a few months. Because of the time of year, we're going to be getting some good growth from it. So I'd let it grow out a few months, and I'd let the dead wood weather for a little bit. And then as I look at it, I definitely see mistakes that I made, things that I want to fix and go back through and make better. And so I would do that. But as far as cutting the foliage, I would let it grow for about a year, and then I would trim it, come spring next year. Unless it just grows like crazy in the wrong direction. You know, a great way of looking at bonsai as far as trimming is just get rid of all the bad branches. Get rid of all the growth and everything that's not needed. And then you have lots of energy going to the places where it is needed.
When was that tree last repotted?
About November. So yeah, it was repotted fairly recently.
In your soil mix? Let's start an argument. What's the soil?
Well, see, here's the thing. I was a little low on mix at the time that I repotted this thing. So what I ended up doing is I put it in scoria and the orchid bark. I also wasn't crazy about the tree, so I didn't want to spend the money for akadama on it. But it's a nice loose mix, and I have a nice drainage layer at the bottom, so it's not going to become waterlogged. It's going to, it'll be okay, you know, as far as not holding too much water. But then once I looked at it and I realized I was bringing it here where other people were going to see it, I decided to go ahead and take some of that soil off the top, and I put a 3/3 mix, the akadama, pumice, and scoria. Excuse me. And so that's what's on the top portion here. So, you know, the advantage there is that's going to help to even out the moisture. It'll drain better at the bottom. It'll hold more moisture at the top and hopefully start to develop some roots up at the top. Because that was another issue with this tree. The nabari on this tree is very good. It's not developed yet, at least. But if a good amount of soil is kept there and it's allowed to grow new roots, I think it'll have good nabari in time.
Yeah, I'm doing that with oak, praying that
Yeah.
to get some paperback in the way they don't grow like this.
Yeah, you can see a little bit of that happening with this tree as well. You know, so the thing to do would be to go ahead and fill up a little bit more soil on this. You know, get it up a little bit higher on the trunk, keep the moisture up around there.
You need to go in there and motivate the tree to grow by poking it
You know,
or you're just going to let the soil be up against it and let it.
I think that's the most effective way. It doesn't hurt, you know, take an ice pick to it or something like that. You can encourage things. You can even try some rooting hormone, you know, in different ways. But I think the most effective is to fill it up with soil. And then the other part of that is, and this is really important, is when you're repotting a tree, so many people are so scared to cut back far enough, to cut those large roots back. But that's the thing that's going to get it to develop roots in the area that's needed. So, you know, so often I'll go through and repot a tree that I've recently got, and I'll go up and I'll find the screens from last time that it was repotted. And then I'll keep going and I'll find the screens from several years ago when it was repotted. And you know, so I've found it by a lot of different people, but you've got, you know, that's bad for the development of the tree. You know, in order to develop good nabari, you have to go through and cut those bottom roots, cut those large roots, and get them pushed back as hard as you can safely do in order for the good stuff to grow. So with this, I'm going to try and just make, I'm not in a hurry with this tree. Let's put it that way. I'm happy to let the branching develop as it does. So instead of trying to take this and making a dramatic bend and risking breaking it in front of all you people, I'm going to go ahead and just call this a branch and just bring it down a little bit. And oh, there it goes anyway. So this is what I'm going to bet on as my apex. If I can get a good amount of growth out of this down here, that'll be a better apex because it's not coming from so far back on the tree. So the thing to do is, remember, don't touch that. All of this stuff, we can keep trimming it back. And, you know, you're developing more ramification, a better branching system by continually cutting all of this back. But we want to let this grow and get as strong as it can so that hopefully that'll become our apex in time. And you can see a lot of these leaves are a little bit weak. I've left them on because I'm waiting for these little tiny buds that are here to develop a little bit more. Once those buds are developed, we can get rid of the weak leaves so that we get more of the healthy ones coming a lot easier when nobody's watching. So, with this branch brought around a little bit, this brought down, you can see the beginnings of a tree. I think, you know, the most important thing is to start with a good trunk. Once you've got that, developing the branching is just a matter of time. How much time do we have? Yeah? All right.